Hello and welcome. This is session IC 17 on bathroom modifications for persons with disabilities, the good, the bad, and the ugly. My name is Clive D'Souza. I will serve as your moderator for today's session and will provide you the CEU code at the end of the session. Before we get started, please remember to make sure that you are on mute, and we will be using the chat feature for any questions. So post your questions along the way and we will address them at the end of the session. With that, I will now turn it over to our two presenters for today's session, Cindy Petito and Chris Chovan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Just one thing, we're going to have a break in between or sort of midway. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And then when we break halfway through, we can go ahead and folks can unmute and we can address questions then. We'll also address questions in the end. One other thing is there's some aspects of bathroom modifications and accessibility that Chris and I are gonna just lightly touch on because of the hour time frame that we have. We can't address everything, but you know, we're more than open to questions in the end for things that we may not address. Okay. So, well, all right. So the objectives for the session today are to learn two free barrier-free universal design solutions that'll maximize function through individual lifespan. To identify three common barriers and solutions in bathrooms for our aging in place populations, particularly those who use mobility devices. And then to learn how to measure the environment bathrooms, which include three common types of products to maximize functions for our CRT clients and their caregivers. So before we take a deep dive into bathroom accessibility and modifications, there's a couple of things I want to address, some general rules that I use. When measuring the bathroom for safety and function, you want to make sure you're measuring the bathroom for the functional user space. And what I mean by that is the overall floor space for walkers and wheelchairs, and any other type of equipment that they're using, particularly around the toilets or around the shower. You want to look for space for grab bars and that equipment inside that space, right? The other thing is you want to make sure that you're assessing the sink area, including the reach ranges and the type of equipment that they're going to be using in that sink or vanity area. The second thing is that you want to measure the access products or the equipment that they're going to be using. That means the overall width, the overall depth. You want to make sure that you're measuring all of the pieces of equipment and you know what kind of space needs are going to be in that bathroom area. And then one of the most important things is you want to make sure you're measuring that same equipment that they're going to be using occupied, meaning the person sitting in and using the equipment and the caregivers as well. So that's what I call measuring the occupied equipment, okay? You also want to make sure if they're using both a walker and a wheelchair of some sort, either manual power chair, you want to make sure that you're measuring them both in a sitting position and the standing positions, their reach range heights, not only just for the individuals themselves, but also the caregivers. When it comes to general rules for modifying, these are some of my general rules. The first thing is, which is really important, is you want to avoid minimal compliance. What that means is that a lot of contractors and clinicians and folks who work in the home accessibility industry use ADA as a rule, and really ADA is a guideline. You're going to have folks that are not going to fit in that ADA, in those ADA guidelines. For example, you might have somebody that's 6'4" tall, or somebody that's 4'10" fall, and they're not gonna fall in that, in those guidelines, particularly, for example, like grab bars. They may need grab bars that are lower than 33 inches from the floor, or maybe even higher than 36 inches from the floor. So universal design is really the best practice to use to avoid minimal compliance. More space is not always more functional. I see this a lot where folks are creating these large spaces in showers, and it can create safety concerns and fall hazards. Individuals and caregivers may also have difficulty, caring for individuals in areas that are too large, puts caregivers at risk for slipping and falling. And then don't forget to consider others in the home, whether it's children or friends or family visiting the home. You want to make sure that the space that you're modifying can also accommodate their needs when they're there, and particularly caregivers, again, those caregivers that are assisting folks with their daily care. So how much space is too much space? Okay. This is a perfect example of, where bathroom modifications or bathroom space, particularly in a shower, is too large. Okay, if you look at the photo on the left, this was actually a bathroom that I evaluated for an aging adult. And the first thing that really screamed out at me was, okay, I'm blinded, by the light that's coming into the bathroom. There's a lot of glare on the floor. This could be a potential slip hazard. Okay. The photo on the right was a shower that was designed for C6 quadriplegic. And this shower is about 6 foot wide by 6, maybe even 7 foot deep. And so when you look at the shower, you can see that there's really some limitations here, because they've got to walk all the way to the back of the shower to access the handheld, turn on the water. And then, that also creates slip hazards. So, looking at these bathrooms with these really large spaces, you really have to evaluate, is that space a functional and safe space for them? How much space is too little space? Okay, two perfect examples. The photo on the left is a prefabricated unit with a built-in seat. I scream when I see this, because, it's great for maybe that aging adult's current situation, but if their condition progresses and they need a shower chair, a roll-in shower chair, there's not enough room there. I mean, it's even a tight squeeze if they have to use something like a slider system, because they can't no longer transfer into the shower. The photo on the right for the T12 paraplegic, you can kind of see here that, this gentleman was probably independent transfer, because we have a flip up bench here, bath bench. So most likely when they built this shower for him, he was able to transfer safely onto this bath bench, and he had the grab bars for support. But then as he aged, he had to use a self-propelling shower chair, and you can see, how small the space is. So if you imagine him sitting in the chair, he's probably knocking his elbows or even his shoulders onto the grab bars, and he's probably pretty tight and pretty clunky, activity that he has to complete in this little small shower space. So what kind of space is just right? We really, when we go into bathrooms and we design bathrooms, we really want to fit for a lifetime. So the photo on the left, this was an aging adult. This was a bathroom designed a couple of years ago for a gentleman who had spinal surgery. He was aging. He was walking, but then he eventually became unsafe on his feet and started having a lot of falls. So he uses he sometimes walks when he has good days. Sometimes he uses a manual chair, and out in the community, he uses his power chair. But we designed the shower for his current function now today, he wanted to be able to roll a shower chair into the bathroom, self-propelling shower chair, and he wants to be able to stand from the shower chair because he still has that ability. However, as he ages, if he does have to use a caregiver or become caregiver dependent, we design the shower so that we can remove this glass partition, and it can be a fully open, accessible shower. The other thing is looking at the shower depth. Okay, if you look at the middle photo, this is a shower that I designed for a quadriplegic who's using a tilt and space shower chair. And this is not 5-foot shower. This is actually a 7-foot shower because you have to accommodate for that chair being in full tilt. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. The photo on the right, you'll see the narrow, I mean, it looks really narrow in the photo, but what this shows is that this is the exact depth of the shower to where a caregiver can stand outside the shower and bathe them without actually having to put a wetsuit on and crawl into the shower with them to bathe them. Okay, so again, designing these showers, more space is not more better. You want to make sure that you're evaluating the space that you need, the equipment, and the equipment particularly occupied. Okay, so grab bars. Grab bars, you know, the big question is, are they always needed? And this is a conversation I have a lot with contractors because they want to use ADA guidelines. We've got to put grab bars in showers. And, you know, if they're not going to use the grab bars for transfers, if they're a totally dependent client who's going to be bathed by a caregiver and they're not going to use the grab bars, then don't put them in because all they do is take up space. So general rules that I use is, number one, don't install the grab bars if the client or the caregiver doesn't need the grab bars. It takes up space in the shower, and you want to make sure that you're not taking up that space by installing grab bars all the way around the shower. And I'm going to show you an example of that in the next slides. You want to make sure if you are installing grab bars that they have the right grip size. A lot of people don't know that the diameter of grab bars come in 2 sizes, 1.5 and 1 1/4. So for folks that have smaller hands, you might want to choose a 1 1/4 diameter so they can get their hands all the way around that shower and get a good, around that grab bar and get a good grip. And then, of course, you know, what I talked about earlier with the height of the grab bars, the height of the grab bars and where they're installed should be within the functional reach range of that client. Okay, not within, you know, just strictly within those ADA guidelines. The ADA is a good place to start, but you really want to have the person sit in the shower or on the toilet, wherever you're going to install those grab bars, and have them reach and have them tell you where the best place is for them. So just a little bit more on grab bars. The photos on the left show the diagonal grab bars, which are really good for folks that are using them in the toilet because they don't just have to rely on their grip strength. They can actually use their whole forearm strength if they're a diagonal at a 45-degree. Or, you know, the nice 45-degree bend grab bars are nice because they can use it to stand. Then they can turn and they can hold onto the grab bar as they're turning and pivoting when they're transferring off the toilet and maybe into their wheelchair. So looking at the photo on the right, for a T10 paraplegic client, I actually flew to Chicago last year and looked at this bathroom and evaluated in person. This bathroom was modified before this client came home from inpatient rehab. He had no idea what he was coming home to. So they modified the bathroom And then right before discharge, they delivered this RAS shower chair. And what ended up happening is, because the contractor didn't know the measurements of the shower chair, they basically pulled out the tub and installed a prefabricated shower unit. And by the time they fit that prefabricated shower unit in the bathroom, it was too late, because he got home, and you can see here in the photo that the shower chair doesn't fit in the shower. I mean, the shower depth is too narrow. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, where the grab bars, if they're not needed, don't install them, because they take up space. So the way this prefabricated unit was installed, they have backing to the prefabricated unit. Then they've got the unit itself, and then they've got the grab bar that sticks out 3 inches. So overall, you have a 5-inch reduction in user space. Okay. And we're going to talk about this bathroom more. So when we talk about curbless versus prefabricated shower floors, there's some things that folks need to be aware of. This is that same bathroom that we were just discussing. And you can see here, this bathroom was a 5-foot wide by 7-foot deep shower. I'm sorry, not shower, but bathroom. So the floor space was 5 foot wide by 7, which is a pretty standard size for older, smaller showers. And so the contractor said, well, okay, this is pretty easy. We just pull out the tub and we'll, slap in this prefabricated shower pan. Well, because he did that, it created other issues like getting the shower chair over the toilet, because again, they didn't measure the equipment or the person in the chair. So you can see here, he's not able to back up the shower chair over the toilet. In addition, just even getting past the toilet to get to the shower is a major issue, because it's very tight. And then once he tries to actually propel that shower chair into the shower area, he's got to contend with a rise that's higher than 1/4 inch. So, the big takeaway here is that the user space that needs to be designed is dependent on the occupied equipment and the functional demands of the individual and the caregiver. Okay, so your self-propelling shower chairs need a minimum of a 5 foot wide by 3 foot deep space in the occupied equipment. Okay, sometimes longer if they have longer leg lengths, or if it's a longer chair, whatever the situation might be. But just know that 5 foot wide by 3 foot deep is bare minimum. Okay, so this is the same bathroom that we basically went in and we remodified it. We went in and we gutted it out. We had him sit in the chair. We measured him in the RAS shower chair. And the photo that you see here in the middle is, we just finished the shower up a couple of weeks ago. What we ended up having to do is there's a bedroom on the other side to the left of this bathroom. And what we did was we took out the adjoining wall, and we pushed it back 2 feet, and we gave him a 7 foot wide shower, and it's what we call a wet room. So this whole entire area is waterproofed, okay, and gives him plenty of turning space, very easy for him to get in and shower himself. So just again, the shower that they put in, the prefabricated unit, the actual floor space measured 53 inches wide, okay, meaning back wall to front wall. The RAS shower chair from the rear wheel to the very front of the footrest is 42 inches long. So that doesn't give a whole lot of space for somebody to try to maneuver a shower chair into a tight tight area, and particularly over a 1.5-inch rise lip. So water dams, with prefabricated shower floors, you'll see a lot of times there's a water dam installed as well. And the photo on the right shows, you can see here just how high that is. And even though this is a collapsible water dam and on the shower on the right, the photo on the left shows you that it collapses down and there's still, just a tad over, 1/2 inch of rise. So typically when these prefabricated shower units are installed right on top of the shower or bathroom floor, and if they're not recessed down, you're going to have a good 1.5 inches of rise. That person is going to have to get those wheels, those casters and those wheels up and over and in a wet area. Okay, so you can imagine how difficult that is. So this is an example of a curbless shower. Okay, this is a bathroom I did a few years back for a gentleman who was an aging adult. He currently is using a walker some around the house for very short distances, and he uses a manual wheelchair. We designed this bathroom for him to be able to accommodate him as he continues to age, and he needs a caregiver full time. So the photo on the left, you can see here, there is no curb. There is, no water dam, but the floor is sloped correctly. And there is a certain configuration that the shower floors have to be properly soaked for water containment and drainage. So the other thing about this is that we designed this so that he could stand at the toilet. He really wanted to stand, or he wanted to have the option to either stand at the toilet or do a side transfer. And so we placed the grab bars, particularly, for his reach ranges and his functional use to be able to do both. Okay. So your tilt and space shower chairs, if you think somebody's going to need a tilt and space shower chair and is going to be fully dependent in the future, the minimum shower space should be 6 foot wide by 3 foot deep. Okay. Sometimes we make them bigger. It just kind of all depends, but that's pretty much the minimum. That's the rule of thumb that I use. Okay. When we talk about knee walls and shower head placement, these are two mistakes folks make, particularly contractors, because they want to put a knee wall in that's not easily removed if that person progresses and needs a caregiver down the road. Basically, the photo on the left that you see here, if this person was a dependent, became dependent on a caregiver, that caregiver would have to basically get into the shower with them to bathe them. Now, if it's their spouse taking care of them and they want to get in the shower, and that's, part of, what they want to continue to do with their spouse, then that's great. But if they're a higher caregiver, that's something that you need to think about, because that's placing that caregiver at risk for falls. Okay. Shower head placement and the water control placement is very important, because again, if that person has to walk all the way into the shower to turn the water on and to access the shower head, that can create slip and fall hazards. So I'm showing you some points here, some points to measure, some things to keep in mind. And, I did mention this earlier, is that you want to know the overall width of the equipment, the bathing equipment, and you want to know the overall depth, okay, from front to back. You also want to know in full tilt, what is that piece of equipment's full length, front to back in tilt. And then just as I'm showing here up in the upper right-hand corner, you see a caregiver who's standing next to him, and you want to look at, again, measuring the person in the occupied chair, and then the caregiver, how close does that caregiver need to get? to that person to be able to care for them. Okay, so your tilt and space shower chairs in full upright are around 42 inches, but when they go into a full tilt, you'll see that full tilt requires 53, to 57 inches. Okay, so if you're talking about a 5-foot wide shower, standard shower, and that person is in full tilt, I mean, you're only allowing, about 3 to 4 inches on each side. Okay, that's a pretty tight fit. Okay. So someone that's using a self-propelling shower chair, again, just showing you some measure points here. And this not only, this is not only just for the shower area, but also the vanity. Okay, you want to look at floor to the top of armrest height, floor to top of the knee height, what kind of clearance do they need? You want to look at the overall depth, okay, from the toes all the way to the back of the wheel. Okay. All right. And we will break for questions. So someone is asking, are you aware of any freestanding shower units that will comfortably accommodate a tilt and space shower chair? So freestanding shower units, you mean, I'm assuming you're meaning portable units? We can take folks off mute for questions. Okay. Yes, so faucet, and I'll type it in here. F-A-W, I think that's how it is spelled. I can share the PDF PowerPoint with folks. So faucet, I think that's how I know it's F-A-W, I think it's F-A-W-S-S-E-T. Faucet is a portable shower unit that we recommend for folks that may not, may have too limited a space, maybe too small of a bathroom, and they need a portable unit maybe to use. It has to be hooked up to a water, some kind of a water source. So typically they're set up in the, in the kitchens.
I was asking because I work with people with ALS and run into a super quick progression where it's just not, they're not going to be able to do a modification.
Yes, and I can tell you from my experience, we have recommended those for ALS for that particular reason.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Tori just asked if does insurance ever cover the cost of a portable shower?
I believe that we've had the Medicaid waiver pay for a portable shower.
Yeah, that's the program that I'm in, and yes, Tori, we've had it through a Medicaid waiver program. Traditional medical insurance, no, that's not going to be something that is going to be typically covered, but there are, some of the waiver programs that would consider it.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay. Any other questions, folks?
We'll have a little more time at the end for more questions if something comes up.
Okay. All right. Are you guys seeing red lines on the screen by chance?
Yes.
I don't know where those came from, so I apologize.
There's a tool in Zoom where you can draw on your content. If you reshare the screen, they should go away.
If I reshare the screen?
Yeah, or you might have an option near the top to clear them. But if you don't see the drawing tools, then I'd probably just reshare.
Oh, that's kind of crazy.
There they are. Go on.
Okay, there we go. All
Yep.
right. Okay, so Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Cindy. As Cindy was saying, I hope by now you guys have all kind of gotten the point of the importance of considering each individual, making the measurements of that individual, considering not only the person, the measurements of the person, the function of the person, but also the environment and the occupation, what it is that they're doing in there. The PEO model, I know many of you OTs on the line or therapists on the line have probably heard of that, but that's kind of the central part of home modifications. We're not only looking at just the environment, but you're looking at the individual, the specific individual, not the standards, but the specific individual, their size, their shape, their function, and what it is they need to do in that space. Those are all, very important things that we consider when we're looking at any sort of home modifications, especially in the bathroom, because we're often looking at smaller spaces and more confinement, just more limited spaces. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about tubs. I got to admit, I'm not a big fan of walk-in tubs. I'm waiting for somebody to convince me otherwise, but I'm not a big fan of walk-in tubs like you see on the left picture here. This is actually one of the better ones where the full door swings out to allow for a bit of a more of a lateral or a stand pivot transfer. Many of them, there's just a step up and a very narrow door, which makes the transfer very difficult to get in and out of. Also a lot of times people aren't thinking about the weight. Again, my program is Medicaid waiver program. We're working with folks with limited means, a lot of times in older homes. And, we got to worry about the structural integrity of the space. To be putting that much weight in a small area is sometimes of concern. A lot of times people also aren't thinking of the fact that they've got to get in, close the door, and wait for the water to fill up. Now, some of the nicer, the higher end models do have heated seats and things like that, but you're still waiting for the system to fill up with water and then the water to go down. Again, some of them have 2 drains or large drains built into the tub unit, but if the draining in the house cannot accommodate, the water's only going to go away as fast as the house can accommodate. So honestly, in our program, we've taken multiple ones of these out because people have, privately paid and financed and all of those fun things that can be done. And then we're taking them out because they're just not very functional for somebody. Also the hot water, I did mention the hot water tank. A lot of homes, 40 to 50 gallon hot water tank. These type of units need a 70 gallon at least, or an inline heater, which is an additional cost beyond just the shower unit or the tub unit itself. However, sometimes a bathtub is, it's existing in the house. Now, Cindy talked a lot about folks with, who are using rehab shower chairs or a wheeled mobility device to access the shower. A lot of the people that I deal with are ambulatory. We do have folks who do use the wheeled shower units, shower wheelchair units, but a lot of folks are ambulatory. They just have, some decreased range or some decreased balance. And stepping over the 14.5 or all the way up to 20-inch side of the tub is very difficult. Can be dangerous. Often a lot of falls come from there. We'll use these in the center here. You see what's called a tub cut, where they actually cut the side wall of the tub. And this is a nice unit because they fiberglass bond it back on, and it's waterproofed. It's solid. You can actually stand on that step there, and it essentially makes the tub like a walk-in shower where you don't have to step over the tub wall. Now, you can no longer bathe in here. You can no longer, the water will obviously not be contained. They do make units that have a door. However, one of the things that I've noticed with these door units that we ran into is because it's a plastic insert that lays over the side wall of the tub. One of the things that we were running into is it significantly impacts the overall width of the tub. Some of the big box stores are selling those as a DIY, where you cut the tub and put this plastic insert over, which, can be good. They have doors that can allow it to keep filling up, but, they do limit that overall width of the inside of the tub, which can be dangerous, can be difficult, can, just decrease the function of it. On the far right is one of the tub slider units that Cindy was talking about earlier. This is a shower buddy system where the tub or the mobile base that you see up front goes over the toilet, and then there's a bridge that connects between the toilet and the bathtub and allows the unit that was once sitting on that mobile base to slide across into the shower. These are very nice. We do this product, or there's a new products, NUPRODX. It's another manufacturer. They're very similar design. They're a little bit more flexible with some of their heights and dimensions, so we tend to use that product a little bit more. But in our program, we see folks who are renting. This is a good solution for somebody who is renting, where you're not, the landlord's not agreeable to modifying the bathroom to any extent. This will allow you to give somebody access to a shower, without having to make a significant modification. There are limitations, as you can see. I mean, this looks like a 60-inch wide standard tub, and you're looking at a tilt and space unit, so that the widths that Cindy was talking about can really come into play here. But and sometimes if the toilet's on the opposite side and the wet wall is facing, you can, configurations of the bathroom can be a little bit challenging. But again, it's a nice unit. It's a nice option for some folks. Next slide. So, as we talked about, as Cindy mentioned, the equipment size is it's very important. We've got to look at the specific equipment, not just the general widths that we would expect, but the actual equipment that's going to be used in that space. It's when we're looking at the turning radiuses. Also, how is somebody going to transfer? Can they do a stand pivot transfer? Are they ambulatory? Can they walk into the space and do a sit to stand transfer? Are they going to be doing a lateral transfer from a manual wheelchair, from a different wheelchair? Are they going to be wheeling their shower chair over the toilet? All of those things are important to be considered. Is somebody going to need assistance with the transfer? If they're going to be needing assistance with the transfer, obviously the bathroom setup and configuration is going to be very different than if somebody is ambulating into the room and just needs a couple grab bars for balance or a little bit of help with the sit to stand. So you got to consider not only the person's and the individual's capabilities, but their caregiver needs, now and consideration into the future. This picture on the right here, this shows a narrow space between the toilet and the wall. This individual actually was for they were using a heavy duty Activate shower chair that was 31.5 inches wide. I don't know that dimension there, but I can tell you it's not 31.5 inches wide. The individual actually could not fit between the wall and the toilet to access the wheel-in shower that they had installed. Remember this picture? I'll show you later at the end. I've got the solution for this picture. We'll show you what was done to increase access and eliminate this barrier here. But again, it's important to actually know the dimensions of the specific equipment that's going to be used. Here on the left, there's a nice, the toilet, they reconfigured the bathroom, put the toilet almost directly in front of the door so that they can have easy access into the toilet. However, behind the vanity there is actually access to the closet. Great. You can't get there. There's no space in between the toilet and the vanity for, even if you were ambulatory to fit. I believe this individual was using a manual wheelchair, but even if the person were ambulatory, that's very limited space there. So we've got to consider the whole layout of the bathroom and where we're putting things. Next slide, please. So, this picture on the left, this is one of Cindy's bathrooms. This is very nice setup. This individual had days where he could stand and pivot to transfer. He could, on those days where he was having a good day, he would stand into the shower and he would be able to stand pivot into the shower and sit on that shower chair, the wall mounted shower system. On other days, he would wheel his shower chair in. This toilevator, I don't know if you guys can tell, underneath the toilet, there's a 3.5-inch rise. That is a beautiful solution when, a lot of times we'll see the risers on top of the toilet. They clamp on, they tend to come loose. They tend to get nasty, dirty. They tend to be unsafe. This toilevator, without having to replace the entire toilet, you remove the toilet from its mount, put the toilevator on, and then it remounts, adding 3.5 inches to the overall height of the toilet. that is often a significant enough height to make somebody be able to do a more independent sit to stand transfer. And again, you're not replacing the whole toilet. It's just putting the toilet underneath it. Another, on the bidet, been doing a lot of bidets lately. That's a nice solution for somebody with decreased hand function or, a whole variety of reasons. I know, it tends to be more of a European or not necessarily an American product yet. But I really think there's a lot of significant benefit to folks that we see with the bidet. This one here has the controls on the wall. It's important to remember when we're considering a bidet, if somebody is using a wheeled mobility or a rolling shower chair, and they're going to want to wheel over top of the toilet, it's important to be aware of that when you're recommending a bidet, because a lot of them have the controls on the side where that's going to interfere. You're going to have the switches and the temperature control on the side, but it's going to interfere and prevent somebody from being able to wheel their shower chair over top of the toilet. So we got to be aware of that whenever we're considering that. All right, next slide, please. So this, when we're looking at creating bathroom, we got to consider all the safety hazards. Obviously, bathrooms are one of the most dangerous rooms in the house. A lot of falls do occur in the bathrooms sometimes because of the space, a lot of times because of the water. Things create and get slippery, and not only the client injuries, but also the caregiver injuries. We have folks, you've got to be aware of keeping the caregivers safe and protecting them as well. This picture in the middle is like the perfect picture of what not to do. You can see there's a ramp going into the shower that looks very short and very steep. It almost looks like they went to a DME store and ordered one of everything and just tried to cram it into the space. I mean, they've got the safety rails on the toilet, then they've got what looks like a super pole in the beside that, really interfering with the space. It's just a lot going on in there. Perhaps it was as the person was changing, they kept adding things to try to keep them functional, but there's just too much going on in there. There's too much clutter, too much, too many obstacles, quite honestly. And this picture on the right, this is actually inside of a shower. So the space, we run into some bathrooms that are very small and very limited space. They actually disconnected the shower head and put a toilet and a vanity inside the shower space. Crazy. You'll see all kinds of things when you're looking at bathrooms, but this is just another fun example of some of the craziness that you're going to see out there. Next slide, please. So when you're looking at vanities, again, just a couple more things to keep in mind. Just calling something a wheel under sink is not going to be enough. You've got to know the width of the wheelchair. You've got to know the length of the wheelchair. Toe clearance, there's the next slide. I'll have a little bit more detail on the measurements and things that you need to consider. But beyond just the person fitting underneath the sink, it's the function that you're going to look for. You're going to need to make sure that the space is functional. The nice wooden vanity on the left is nice with the matching trim around the mirror. However, somebody in a seated position looking into that mirror with that big trim around it, most likely they have a very limited view of what they can see of themselves in that mirror. It's just very high. The trim takes up a lot of the space of the mirror. Also, it's a traditional depth of the vanity. So getting underneath that can be very difficult to wheel under far enough to actually get to the sink. Oh, go back one for me. On the right-hand side, the little farmer style sink actually protrudes out past the vanity, allows somebody to get closer. The sink can get closer to their chest, can have a little bit more of a functional use of that sink without having to, lean so far forward. Also, there's a nice tilt mirror on that right-hand side, increasing the view from somebody to be able to do their grooming activities while at that sink much more functionally. Also, the lighting is important for all environments, but especially in the bathroom. A lot of times, you know, we're making sure that we're installing some motion activated or some low level night lights into bathrooms. You know, a lot of times folks are making multiple trips, especially as we age, they're making multiple trips into the bathroom at night. Don't have to fumble with a light if you have a motion activated light or just a low level night light, giving them light as they access the room. Okay, next one, please. See this one here, this sink, wheel under sink on the left is like perfect. She is able to get close enough to it with her wheelchair. So the height of her seat to floor, the knee height was measured, obviously. There's enough toe clearance. There's a, you know, the plumbing is protected. She's not interfering with her feet aren't hitting into the plumbing. Her hands are able to access the faucet very easily in almost a neutral position. She's not having to lean or stretch or reach. It's almost an optimal configuration for a wheel under sink. The only challenge is there's not a lot of counter space, which often you'll run into when you're looking at wall mounted sinks, but functionally it looks very optimal. You know, these measurements on the right hand side are just things to consider. You know, you want to make sure that there's not only, you know, you got to look at the toe clearance, you've got to look at the wheeling underneath the counter, how deep the counter is the sink are they able to wheel underneath it? How far do they have to reach? And all of these things are why it's so important to evaluate the individual in the space. You know, you need to know what their functional reach is. You need to know what those measurements are in their mobility device. Now, if they're typically a manual wheelchair user, obviously you're going to look at that. If they also use a rolling shower chair at times in there, you're going to need to look at both units, whichever unit they're going to be most frequently using. You know, if there's a significant difference between the two measurements, you're going to want to find that balance between giving them, you know, each unit that they're going to be using. It's going to have to be able to be as functional as possible. All right, next slide, please. So here's a little bit more about sinks. Pedestal sinks, regardless of, you know, if anybody's using any sort of mobility device, pedestal sinks just are not functional, especially ones that, you know, with the pedestal that goes all the way down to the ground. Not only can you not wheel a wheelchair, whether it has a foot plate, swingaways, whatever, this is gonna cause an obstruction and really limit somebody to get underneath that sink. You know, a lot of times we think, well, the footrest can you know, span over both sides of it and they can get close. Functionally, you know, practically that almost never happens. You know, usually the foot plates are going to be hitting it, really limiting access. Most pedestal sinks have limited counter space. And if you are working with somebody who is ambulatory, pedestal sinks are not meant for leaning on or reaching or pulling, which, you know, we run into a lot of times with you know, folks who are ambulating. They're going to try to use that device or pull on anything that they can. We frequently see pedestal sinks that are coming loose or have come loose. It's just a big safety concern. Next to that, there's another nice picture of a tilted mirror being able to, you know, tilt up for multiple people in the home. Somebody standing at the mirror can be able to do what they need to do, but also tilt down for somebody in a seated position to be able to do what they functionally needed to do. On the right-hand side, this is a nice picture of somebody who didn't want the plumbing or under the sink to be exposed. So they put the vanity doors, put full doors. Those doors can open. And actually, if you wanted to take it one step further, there's sliding hardware that you can put and have those doors slide inside of the base cabinet. Well, actually not a base cabinet, but slide underneath the sink there. It really makes a nice, neat finish look. Next one, please. So with faucets, there's a lot of consideration, a lot of different faucets. You know, we want to look at the height. So the hand space, the one on the upper left is a nice elevated faucet, really gives a little bit of an arch, a little bit more space underneath it. The one on the bottom left is actually classified as an ADA faucet, but it's very small, very compact. The reason it has that ADA distinction is because of the lever handles, which reduced grip makes it easier to access. But it's very small, very limited space. You know, you have somebody with quadriplegia, tenodesis grip, limited movement, they're not gonna be able to do what they need to do underneath the faucet of that size. So when you're considering faucet selection or faucet placement, typically, traditionally, the faucet is in the back of the sink. A lot of folks, sometimes when you're using wheeled device mobility, getting underneath there, they don't have the reach, they don't have the range. So we'll look at doing side-mounted faucet, touchless faucets. So, they're not having to reach for the knobs and to activate it. They're just motion activated faucets. You see these sinks on the right-hand side are a sloped sink, which allows for, somebody to get underneath it, the water to slope away. More of a shallow bowl to, again, give you more of a functional reach. You're not having to reach down deep inside of a faucet, or I'm sorry, of a deep sink. A lot of times those offer a better clearance underneath to be able to wheel under. The one on the bottom right shows a side-mounted sink with a slant to the right, or side-mounted faucet, excuse me, with a slope to the right. So you really have a good access there for somebody with a limited reach. They can get to the faucet. The water is going to, drain away. Just a nice option there. All right, next one, please. So doors, obviously, when you're dealing with a bathroom, privacy is important. You need to, want to try to keep the door on there. A lot of bathrooms, doors typically will swing in. That can really limit access or limit space. So sometimes we'll consider swinging the doorway out or reversing the swing. It's right side hinge, left side hinge. We'll reconfigure doors, just the swing of the door. Sometimes the bottom left here, you've got offset hinges. This can be great to help increase the width of a doorway. These have been around for a while. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these or used these. This allows the whole door to swing inside of the jam, or outside of the jam, excuse me. So you've got the whole functional width. So a 28-inch door opening actually, or 28-inch door actually has a 28-inch opening with this type of unit, type of hinges. Also, next to that is the doorknob gobbler. This is, Cindy introduced me to this actually. I have to credit her with that one. This is a great product that actually allows the door handle to go inside of the wall. Instead of just punching a hole in it, like a lot of times will happen in the drywall, this actually is a hard plastic device that it can go in to be mounted in there to allow the door handle to recess into the wall. Sometimes the door handle is what limits the opening of a door. One thing to think about with those offset hinges, you want to make sure if it's right up against a wall or a closet or something like that, you may not, even the offset hinges might not be able to swing wide enough to give you any real functional addition to the width. But most times you can, that will increase the width. Doorknob style, Cindy and I were talking just yesterday. One of the downsides to the doorknob gobbler is it's just for round knobs. A lot of times we're putting on lever handles for decreased grip, easier access, and this particular product cannot accommodate those at this point. But, so you want to consider the different doorknob styles that you're going to use or going to recommend for somebody with a decreased grip or whatever the case may be. Again, that's working with the individual, understanding their needs and their limitations. Sometimes we'll get on barn doors. I'll talk next slide on a little bit more on barn doors, but pocket doors is a nice option. They can be difficult depending on the size of the bathroom and depending on the what's in the wall, the ability to put plumbing, if there's plumbing, if there's electrical, if there's ductwork, you need to reconfigure or may need to reconfigure all of that if you're putting in a pocket door. So because of the challenges there, barn doors have become a popular option. You want to pop to the next one? A little bit more on barn doors. They can be very stylish. They're kind of trendy now. But you've got to look at the weights of barn doors. They can be very heavy. The hardware, you got to make sure you're getting good hardware so the roll is as reduced and as easy as possible. Also, barn doors in a hallway, because the hardware is on the outside of the door, it can limit your width of that hallway. You can lose 3 to 4 inches. This is a nice example here. This is a beautiful hallway to the bathroom with the barn doors, but this individual was in a manual wheelchair, and when they installed the barn doors, it took away so much of that width that they were no longer able to get down that hallway. Need to be careful when we're considering those. Just kind of an important note, if you can't reconfigure the door, you can't reconfigure the traditional swing, a pocket door isn't an option, and barn doors are going to take up too much space. Your only other option at that point is probably to reconfigure the layout of the bathroom. Somewhere you're going to need to grab some additional space to, make a doorway somewhere else without taking away that space there. All right, next one, please. So here, remember that one that I showed you at the beginning where the woman could not get past her toilet with her 31.5-inch wide activated shower chair? The solution here is they reconfigured the location of the door. Instead of coming from the far left of the bathroom, they now came in through the bedroom. This is the same shower. You see the rug on the ground there on the picture on the right. That is actually right in front of the toilet. So she has the same, with the barn door coming in from the bedroom, she can now directly access straight into the toilet and also into the shower there. There is enough space because of the opening that they were able to create. This is a nice solution for a limited space. One more, please. And this is important. Floor transitions. Flooring is important. You're obviously, when you're dealing with a bathroom, we're going to be looking at non-slip, solid surfaces, waterproof, scratch resistant. Glare is important. Cindy showed that one picture where that beautiful bathroom, but man, that sun could be blinding coming in off that high gloss tile. But a very important thing that we need to keep in mind is the transition. If you're changing flooring or there's a change in flooring between the bathroom and the neighboring room, we really need to try to limit that transition, that threshold, to 1/4 inch or less. It can be very difficult, but that's absolutely, you want to have a bevel on it. This one in the center is a nice plastic. It's a rubber threshold. It really has a nice smooth transition on both sides. The one on the left, it's a wooden. It's not quite optimal, but it's better than the abrupt on the top right. We just really need to be aware of these transitions between the rooms. And one down here is just a level height between the two different types of floor, but it's a very level transition. There's no threshold at all. It's just a metal, separator that's the same exact heights. So I believe we've got a few minutes left for questions here, guys. Anybody, either in the chat or you can open your mic and ask any questions.
Yes, we have a couple of minutes left, so please post your questions in the chat or just use your mic. In the meanwhile, I am going to post your code in the chat box as well as announce it. Let's see, and your.
So question, will a bidet work can be adjusted for a user in a rolling shower chair? Cindy, I'm going to defer to you on that one. I have not had any of my bidet folks in a rolling shower chair. So I've not had that experience. So I'm not sure if you have, if that's.
No, I agree. I have not had a situation where a bidet, where a rolling shower chair worked over a bidet. We ended up having to remove the bidet because of it. And if anybody knows of a bidet that works with a shower commode chair, please let us know, because I haven't found that product yet.
In interest of time, I will announce the code and then we'll get back to the next question. Your CView code is S0WE2F. I've also posted it in the chat window here. That's a 0, S0WE2F. Cindy, please go ahead.
Yes. So there was a comment earlier about another product, another shower product that came, that I have to look back in the chat, in reference to the comment above, the shower bay. It does not easily accommodate a tilting rolling shower chair. The faucet, FAWSSAT, that product comes in different sizes. So they do have a deep enough shower that will accommodate a tilt space shower chair. There was another question about, can we share the PowerPoint? And anybody who needs the PowerPoint, Um, I can email it to you if you can't download it off the website.
So
Okay.
there's a lot of bidet talk, which is cool, but some of the bidets do have adjustable force, adjustable angle, which unfortunately I don't have a particular make or model that I've had a the best experience with that I use all the time. So there's still, we're using them, but I'm still gaining experience myself. So I don't have a perfect solution for there. There was another comment or question further up. Hang on.
Someone mentioned, let's see, Christina, a Euro solution. Any thoughts on usefulness of super small depth sinks? They're popular in Europe. I know Europe has a lot of products that we can't get here in the United States. I mean, they're essentially a little bit ahead of us in that aspect. Again, if someone has a product that they think would be useful, I would love to, to share those, have discussion around that.
Christina, we do occasionally do some very small 12-inch depth sinks. We've done a few of those just because very limited space due to the confines of trying to reconfigure a bathroom. We have done some. They have their place, but again, it's I haven't done a ton of them.
The ones that you're talking about, Chris, the only issues that I've had with the shorter depth ones is that the person toes hit the wall before they can actually get close enough to the sink. So they're actually having to really lean pretty far, forward to try to reach the sink.
Correct. Yeah. And the ones that I've done were for an ambulatory individual. And it was just, we reconfigured the bathroom, and quite honestly, the only sink that would fit in the configuration was a very small sink on the side wall next to the door opening. So, yeah, I mean, it was, again, in a wheelchair, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah. And I see Lori put a comment in here or a question. Are most accessible hotel rooms problematic because they'd use ADA standards? This is something I look at when I travel. And they're, some of them use ADA standards and some of them don't. I can tell you, I was just in a hotel room a couple of weeks ago, and they actually did a pretty good job. But most of the units that are in hotel rooms that are not what they consider their handicap accessible rooms, they have a lip that you have to step over. They're units. So they haven't quite, gotten to the walk-in, curbless shower type, layouts yet in the hotel rooms. Hopefully soon, but. Okay. It looks like Scott has a comment, even if the shower chair would roll over the bidet, would there be an issue with the sprayer hitting the correct spot? Yes, that is correct. Same issue with 3-in-1 commodes over the bidet. Yes, absolutely. So the sprayer that's in the bidet won't be able to reach high enough. So even if you elevated the floor to seat height of the shower chair and you rolled over the toilet with the bidet, it would be sitting so high that it couldn't reach. So definitely.
I see a question asking about corner mounted sink options.
Any corner mounted sink options? My only thing about corner sink options, I mean, if you're talking about a 45-degree corner, possibly, but sinks that are actually mounted in a corner at like a 45-degree corner, a lot of times, turning, and you've got the wall so close to them that if they're ambulatory and they're, using a walker, like in Chris's, situations with the aging population, but in somebody in a chair, it's a little bit more difficult because you've got one side that's so close to a wall. And also, if you're looking at a 45-degree corner, you got to consider the footrest and the feet and where are they going to hit the wall? Okay.
Cindy, would you like to share your email address so people can contact you perhaps? Or
I will put it in the
Chris?
chat right here. Yeah.
Chris, you as well?
Yep.
And while you both are typing that out, I'd like to just thank both our presenters, Cindy and Chris, and to all of you who have attended the session. Thank you for your participation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.